The next thing we need to learn about is how to deal with equations of circles that aren't in the standard form. Notice we have x squared plus y squared plus 8x plus 4y plus 16 equals 0. Notice we still have an x squared and a y squared, but we don't have it in the standard form. So when the equation of a circle is not in standard form, we must first complete the square. To find the radius and the center and then be able to graph. Now we talked a little bit about completing the square in the past. We're going to use the same process again, although we're going to be completing the square twice in one problem. First, what I'd like you to do is to get to all the x's and group them together, x squared plus 8x, and then I'd like you to leave a little space or a blank. Next, gather up all the y's, so we have plus y squared plus 4y plus blank. Again, leave a little space here because that's where we'll be putting our completing the square. And lastly, I'd like you to take the 16 and move him to the other side by subtracting 16 from both sides, and that gets you negative 16. I'd also like you to put an extra little blank for the red blank, an equal and opposite blank on the other side, and another blank for the green. So now I have an equivalent equation with the x's grouped, the y's grouped, and the number on the other side. Looking at the red, the x's, I would like x squared plus 8x plus some number to factor into a complete square. Well, in order to do that, we're going to use the process of dividing by 2 and squaring. When I take 8 and divide 8 by 2, I'm getting plus 4. I believe x squared plus 8x plus some number can factor into x plus 4 quantity squared. In order for that to truly factor in, you have to have a value here. And the value in the blank needs to be 4 squared. You divide by 2 to get 4, and you square 4 to get 16. So if there's a 16 here, this truly does factor into x plus 4 quantity squared. The only problem is you can't just go about adding a 16 to the left-hand side just because you want to. You then must also add 16 to the right-hand side. Let's do the same process with the green. I would like my green y squared plus 4y plus some value to become something quantity squared. In order for that to happen, I need to have a value here. To find the value, I'm going to divide by 2. 4 divided by 2 is 2. And in order for this green to truly factor into y plus 2 quantity squared, we need to fill in the blank or complete my square by taking 2 and squaring it. The divide by 2 and square step. 2 squared is 4, and y squared plus 4y plus 4 truly does factor into y plus 2 quantity squared. If you're not sure, you can always take y plus 2 times y plus 2 off to the side of your paper, and it truly does distribute into y squared plus 4y plus 4. Now, in order to keep my equation balanced, I can't just go about adding 4 to the left-hand side just because I want to. I have to then also counteract it with adding a 4 to the right-hand side. When I combine my terms on the right-hand side, negative 16 plus 4, I'm getting 4. And in 2 steps, I've changed my general equation of a circle into the standard form of a circle. X plus 4 quantity squared plus y plus 2 quantity squared equals 4. My center is going to be the opposite of positive 4 or negative 4, comma the opposite of positive 2 or negative 2. And my radius is the square root of r squared. The square root of 4 is 2. From here I can finish graphing by plotting the center, negative 4 comma negative 2. My radius is going to be going up 2, right 2, down 2, and left 2 from my center. And then connect your points with a circular shape. I have now taken a general form of a equation of a circle, changed it into standard form, found its radius and center, and graphed. Let's take a look at the next problem. Again, I'm going to group my x's together, x squared plus 12x plus blank. I'm going to group my y's together, y squared minus 6y plus blank, and move the positive 29 to the opposite side of the equal sign, changing his sign to be a negative 29, and adding the other two blanks. For my green terms, I'd like these green terms to factor into x plus something quantity squared. In order to find that, I divide by 2 to get positive 6, square to get 36, and x squared plus 12x plus 36 truly does factor into x plus 6 quantity squared. If I add 36 to the left-hand side, I have to also then add 36 to the right-hand side. Looking at the red y terms, I would like y squared minus 6y plus something to factor into y plus something quantity squared. In order to find out what those values are, I'm going to divide by 2. Negative 6 divided by negative 2 is a negative 3. Notice that you are keeping your negative sign. When I square, a negative 3 times a negative 3 is a positive 9. And when I add a positive 9, I have to then add a positive 9 to the right-hand side as well. Notice that these squares, whenever I square a value, I'm always going to be positive. So the values that you're adding in are always going to be positive on the left-hand side as well as the right-hand side. Combining like terms on this side, I'm getting negative 29 plus 36 plus 9 is equal to 16. And that's my standard form of the equation. X plus 6 quantity squared plus y minus 3 quantity squared equals 16. My center is the opposite of positive 6 or negative 6, comma the opposite of negative 3, which is positive 3. I can go ahead and plot those at negative 6 comma positive 3. My radius is the square root of r squared being 16, and the square root of 16 is 4. From my radius I can go up 4, right 4, down 4, and left 4. Using these points, make sure you're drawing a circular shape and you have completed your square, found the standard form, the radius, the center, and sketched your graph. On our last problem, we have only one x term, but we have two y terms. If I don't have an x term without a squared value, I can't complete the square on the x squared term. So I'm not going to add any more blanks here at all. But I will put the y squared minus 6y, and he needs a blank. Move the 7 to the other side of the equation, making it positive 7, and the red needs an opposite blank on the right-hand side of the equation. Because the x squared doesn't have another x value, he's just coming down as x squared. You can also think of it as x minus 0 quantity squared if you wanted to think about it that way, because there is no x term. I would like my y squared minus 6y to factor into a perfect square. In order to find that perfect square, I'm going to divide the negative 6 by 2 to get negative 3. I take my negative 3 and I square it to get a positive 9. Notice it's always positive. If I add a positive 9 to the left-hand side, I also have to add a positive 9 to the right-hand side. When I add these values, 7 plus 9, I'm getting 16. I now have my equation in standard form. X squared plus y minus 3 squared equals 16. Another way of thinking about that is x minus 0 squared plus y minus 3 squared equals 16. Putting the 0 next to the x would help us get our center. My h is going to be 0, and my k is going to be the opposite of negative 3, or positive 3. So my center is at 0, comma 3. To find my radius, I'm taking the square root of r squared. R squared is 16, and the square root of 16 is 4. So I'm going to go up 4, right 4, down 4, and left 4. And then I can make my circular shape. And I have a fairly good circle with a center at 0, 3 and a radius of 4. That concludes our discussion on midpoint, distance, and circles. Remember, for midpoint and distance, you need to know your formulas. For circles, you also need to know the standard form of an equation. You'll need to be able to write an equation from a center and a radius. You'll need to be able to graph from an equation in standard form. And then you'll need to be able to graph from an equation that is not in standard form by first completing the square.